Back with another how-to video, and in this one we're going to look at removing the prop from the back of this Evinrude 40. It's a pretty straightforward process. And the first thing we're going to do is remove this split pin, which is pretty corroded anyway, probably not take much to do. That just retains the nut, the castle nut, stops it backing out. What we'll have to do is probably get a drift and just tap it back through because it's heavily corroded. So we tried using a little pin to try and draw this out, but it's so corroded that, to be honest, what we're going to do is we're just going to put the socket on, which is a 27mm, straight over there. I've got a big breaker bar. We'll put that on there, and you can see the first problem is we come to rotate it, it's rotating the prop. So one of the best things to do is get a lump of wood, you stick it up there against the top plate, and just give it a turn. Now you see the prop's now retained. We'll remove the nut, and we can turn the prop the other way and draw the nut off the prop shaft. And you see it's straight off. Because the pin was so corroded and we drew the nut straight off, there is still a pin sort of body inside, because there's a on that shaft there, there's a drilled hole all the way through. And the pin, split pin, is still inside there. But what we're going to do is we're going to pull the prop off, and then we'll be able to tap through and just tap it out. And we'll be able to put a new one on. Normally these just come straight off, just like that. No persuasion required. We've got a thrust washer in the back there. Sometimes these do get stuck on, but a little tap and they'll come straight out, which we'll probably do. And then we can clean the splines on the shaft. I don't know if you can quite see them, but you can see the splines. So on this prop, the prop itself has splines, and they marry up to the splines on there. So the prop doesn't just spin free. It's what you call a rubberized hub. So you can see on the outer side, so you can see a bit better. On here, that's rubber. If you do hit something particularly hard, obviously the blades will take the damage first. So you can see these have been in the sand, they're worn down. They're not bent or chipped, they're just worn. They have been through sand. If you hit something particularly hard, this rubber will let go of the hub itself. Just protects the engine and the gearbox, and really, otherwise it's just metal on metal and something will have to give. If it's not the prop, it'll be the gearbox inside, and that'll be a pretty expensive repair job, that, to be honest. So we got that thrust washer on the back, a bit of persuasion, a bit around there, and you'll see that draws straight off. That's the thrust washer there. Obviously make sure that goes on back in the right orientation. Once that's off, you can see inside there, I mean, there's a bit of corrosion. Well, not corrosion, there's a bit of sand in the bottom there where it's been sitting. Flush that with a bit of water or compressed air. What we'll do now is we'll clean the splines up, tap that pin. I don't know if you can see that. Let's just turn that there. So you can see there's, with a cotter, split pin will go through, and in the end, tap that out now. So we've got a little pick, rubber mallet. Just put it in the recess there. Just tap it. Eventually we'll get it out. The other side as well. So break it in the inside as well. There we go. See the bits coming out. That's just, see there now, I can get my pick all the way through. So once we put the new grease on, prop back on, thrust washer, castle nut, we'll retain the castle nut with the new split pin that goes through there. What we'll do now is we'll clean the prop shaft with a brake cleaner just to get all that, anything that's stuck on there off. All the old grease and salt, sand. There's not actually that much on it, but it doesn't take much. Just like that. While you're doing this, you can check for burrs and nicks on the shaft, but I mean, it's smooth and still chrome, so no problem with that one. Just clean the spline grooves out as much as we can out. If you did have any burrs or nicks, you could go over it with really fine sandpaper. Obviously working around the shaft, not fore and aft. You don't want to create a divot in it. We have checked the gearbox seals as well. We did a pressure test on another video, and they're holding, so we know they're not leaking. So that's it, pretty much clean. What we'll do now, we'll just apply a little bit of marine grease. We're just using 24C PTFE as Quicksilver. It's probably not the 100% the correct grease, but it's better than nothing. I always use it, and it's never let me down. I always get the props back off. That's the main thing. If you don't put it on, they're bottomed on. You never get them off. They're just a nice light coating to start with. We've got the thrust washer. We'll slide that back on. Then next one is obviously the prop. That slides on once it's matched onto the splines. Next part we've got is just a little washer. That sits in a little groove in there. Then have the castle nut, which winds back on. Turn the prop. Then go back with our wood. And our socket. We can nip it up. Doesn't have to be overkill. There is a torque setting. Just give it a little bit like that. And then the main thing you're looking for is, get the light in there. You can see the hole. Right, now we've got the nut on. What we need to do is we need to make sure that the hole in the shaft and the nut are aligned, so we can get the split pin all the way through, and we can turn back the ends so the nut can't back out. As you can see at the moment, the nut is covering the hole, so this nut needs to rotate just a little bit more. So we'll put the wood back in, nip it up just a fraction more, should be able to get the pin through. So we'll get the socket back on, get the wood in, just a tiny bit more, check that. A little bit more again. That's pretty much in the correct position now. We get a split pin through there, and that's the prop, re-secured, re-greased, back on the prop shaft. So here's the split pin, and what we'll do is drop it through the hole. So now it's through, we bend the arm back. Pliers on that. one side, two sides. And now the nut can't back out because that pin is in the way. And that's pretty much it. Very easy job, anyone can do it really, as long as you've got, well, pretty much lumber wood, a 27mm socket, breaker bar, bit of grease, good to go.